But listen, I can't complain because this is nothing. This pales into insignificance compared to the work going on in the healthcare sector. In the house. Nice to see you again. I saw you in the background earlier. Excellent, fantastic. Who is this? Is this Abby? Holly. And I got it wrong. Never mind. Okay, Holly. Hope you're well. Have you had your dinner? Because it's 8 o'clock now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good. Holly, we've got Julie by her side, Julie Smithson. If you don't know her already, then, well, Julie, why don't you introduce yourself? Actually, no, we're going to wait maybe 1 or 2 minutes until people come in, because I think the door's just about opened. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
The doors opened 3 minutes ago.
Sorry. Oh, they opened 3 minutes ago. Okay. All right. We're going to wait a few more seconds. Just let the stragglers come in. I think they're probably down there sipping the coffee and tasting the 0 kilometre organic snacks that you kindly put on for us, Lorel. Thanks very much. Right. So, right. Here we go. So this is the front slide. And I didn't want to confine ourselves necessarily to following slides. I put this out on LinkedIn late last night, and there's nothing wrong with slides. I might live to regret this, but I don't think I will, because I've met Abby before and I've met Holly before. Okay, a few weeks ago we met for the first time. I think it was in Engage, wasn't it? That's where it was. Yeah. Excellent. And also, did we catch up in Rumi once? Were we in Rumi before?
We were here last time.
Okay. Oh yeah, that was it. Yeah. Excellent. So we've also been in All Space. So we're going to really get a bit deeper again with the guests here and with Daniel, of course, and talk a little bit more about your experiences, because we really want to learn from you as well. So thank you very much for taking the time for coming. And again, thank you to Daniel. Well, the room's filling up. This is good. I think we're going to be getting a video source to this as well, so you can show your friends as well that were maybe a little bit busy today. You can forward that on to them. But as was mentioned by Laurel, this is our number. What are we now, Laurel? I've lost count. 24 minus 9, 13?
16. No. Turn around. It's on the slide. 16.
Oh, God. Oh, yeah, there it is.
I warned you.
Yes, that's it. Laurel said about the 18-hour point, you're probably going to melt.
Yeah,
that's it. So I look forward to sharing that moment with you. All right, we'll see what happens. So this is 6 p.m. We're 5 p.m. PST for Toronto. I think it's 8 p.m. Winnipeg. You're in Winnipeg, Daniel.
Yes, sir. It's
all right.
I think I've lost track of time because I'm in BR.
Are you born and bred Winnipeg? Did you move there? What's the story?
I've always been here. Although I spent a lot of time in Toronto too. So although not
great.
Not right now, avoiding that place.
No. Okay.
All right, can we have your speakers make sure that they turn on megaphones? We could hear them.
Yeah, so speakers, if you could just look to your left and you'll see the menu, and at 12 o'clock there should be the megaphone icon. I don't know if you can just click that for us. If you have trouble finding that, what you can do as well, I'm going to bring up the hand raise feature, and that should be able to bring this. Hang on a second. There you go. If you can't find the megaphone, just click the hand raise, bottom right.
I think I'm megaphoned. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can. Great. I think who's using Alan's profile, just so I don't get confused. Holly. That's Holly. Great. Holly. Okay, Holly. Thanks. I'll try to. So Holly is Alan. Excellent. And Abby, are you? Oh, hang on a minute. I think you just clicked that. Abby, could you click the at the bottom right? You've got the raise hand button.
Yeah.
Great. There we go. Excellent. Great. So all the speakers are on megaphone. If you can't hear us, just give us some sad faces and we'll try to rectify any of the issues. But it's gone great so far. And without further ado, let's jump in. Yes, this is our number 16. This is in support of, as you can see up on the walls there, the Italian Red Cross. The Lecce branch is down in the southeast corner of Italy. And it's a community which is about 1 million strong in the region. And we're massively under-resourced compared to many parts of the world, and Lombardia in the north of Italy is really struggling at the moment. So I'm just trying to do my little bit to raise some of the awareness for the fight going on down here. And, you know, if you want to spend a bit of money, the link is bit.ly/24hour English. That's all on social media. You're going to see that if you didn't catch that. But, you know, it's not about them. I don't want to make this too centric of where I am or what I'm trying to do. If anything, if it doesn't strike a chord with you, just maybe look at your community, knock on the door. If the neighbour needs some cat food or, you know, a bottle of milk, just see what's going on in your community. So that's what it is, nudging you to think a little bit more about how you might be able to help your next kin and neighbours out in this difficult time. So there we go. We're going to start off with the ladies first. So Holly, introduce yourself. You shouldn't ask this normally to a lady, but how old are you? Where are you from?
I'm 11 and I'm from Canada.
Great. Okay. So you're from Canada, and that's Toronto, yeah?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Good. Thank you very much. And by your side is your sister, Abby.
Hi everyone, I'm Abby, I'm 15. I'm also from Toronto.
Excellent. Very good. So, yeah, and so you're both at school. Holly, that's right. Yeah, you were telling me a little bit recently about the school you're attending.
Yeah.
And you taught me a word in English, because what's the school? What's the name of the school? Do we want to give a shout out?
The name of my school is Forest Avenue.
Great. Yeah, okay. Shout out. And you told me elementary, I think. No, sorry, is that the word you used? Elementary school?
Yeah,
okay,
elementary school.
Do you remember what we said was the word in the UK?
I can't remember right now. Yeah,
excellent. Prize, yeah, good. Primary school, good. We're going to get a little bit deeper into what you get up to over there in Canada. And Daniel, what about you? Where are you from? Tell us a bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm 30, and I'm also from Canada. So I'm the founder of a company called BSD, and we focus on developing educational experiences and simulators. And I'm also, like I said, from Canada, but I'm from Winnipeg. And that's not as big or as well known of a city as Toronto, but I am only a couple-hour flight away from there. I've been working in VR for about 5 years now, so I founded my company in 2015, and pretty much everything I do is driven by innovation in the education space. So I spend a lot of time thinking about and implementing technology with schools, with partners that are focused on creating experiences for kids and for new workers, people who are trying to find a new job or grow professionally. So that's really what drives me and what my company's all about.
Excellent. Yeah. So you said about kids and students. I mean, you've got by your side there an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old. Are these this type of age ranges you're talking about?
Yeah. So I've worked on projects for all kinds of ages, although some of my biggest impact projects have been for age ranges like Holly and Abby. And I will say I also happen to have an 11-year-old daughter. So she is one of my main testers and accredited artist on some of our projects. So, you know, very fun fact there. But yes, some of our deployments have been very large scale for northern Canadian communities and rural reserves to help kids that don't have as much access to technology get access to VR technology and really kind of like bring a potential to them that they may not normally be exposed to. So yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, so you really covered the gamut of kind of business, startups, entrepreneurs, and we'll cover those in the conversation. But with regards to innovation, the I that you mentioned before, we'll come to Holly first. In terms of like, school, I mean, what type of technology do you use at school at the moment?
Usually like laptops or Chromebooks, or sometimes we're allowed to use like personal device. And we have a dedicated iPad that the whole school uses. And
What do you
think technology?
Okay, yeah. And what do you think about bringing your own device to BYOD? Do you think that's a good thing to take the device from home to school?
I do think it's a good thing. Like, I prefer using my own device, and the one that's at school is my phone is using like all the technology at school kind of is slow. My phone's not as slow as all the technology.
Yeah,
So I
okay.
like using my own device.
Sure, yeah. And Abby, are you the same? I mean, do you take your device to school? Do they allow that? Do they not? How do you get involved with tech?
Yeah, I bring my own laptop to school, so whenever we don't have like a computer lab period or have the Chromebooks booked, I use my own laptop. But we do have those like computer labs or whatever we can use. So we definitely use a bit of both, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And Daniel, coming back to what you said about kind of helping those communities that maybe have the access to the technology or the technical infrastructure. I mean, is this one of the things that you're seeing, is that getting them to bring the devices into school might be actually a barrier, mightn't it? Because they might not have the devices in the first place. Is that what you're seeing?
Yeah, so a lot of the communities and the schools that we're working with right now are looking at different ways to bring technology into the classroom. So I'm finding, especially in like northern rural communities and in First Nations reserves in Canada, they might not have the funding to have a proper computer lab. However, a lot of the kids do have their own technologies. So some of the teachers that I talk to are interested in bringing the devices into the classroom to be able to get access to apps and websites that they wouldn't have access to otherwise. That being said, one of the biggest barriers that I still run into when trying to deploy this technology is the whole aspect of people not embracing technology, not understanding what they really need to do to implement that technology in their organization. One thing that I'm not seeing yet is as many schools up here in Canada implementing VR labs. So, they're able to bring their phones, they're able to bring their laptops, and they might have a computer lab at the school. But what I'm not seeing yet, although I am starting to see it in some schools, but generally what I'm not seeing is schools adopting VR technology and having a full-fledged VR lab. Behind you, you got some people playing with laser pointers, and
there we go.
Yeah,
there's always one.
All right, great. Bit of a sidetrack there.
Thanks. No. So we call that. So you're talking about VR labs, which is bringing us very, very nicely onto this thing. Now we are in VR, aren't we? And I mean, tell me about your first experience, Abby, with virtual reality. Do you remember that?
I still remember. Yeah, my dad just brought home. Oh, I don't even remember what version it was, but I remember we were in an aquarium and all these like jellyfish and things swam over my head. It was very cool.
Yeah. And I mean, if you compare that to normally, if you didn't experience that in VR, how would you have seen that?
Like maybe in an aquarium.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
All right, so physically going there, yeah? Okay, yeah. Or maybe in a book.
Like video.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, and how would you compare that experience? So, okay, we've got two options here. Imagine going physically to the aquarium or the VR experience. What do you think are the pros and cons to that type of experience in your mind?
Well, going in person, I guess it kind of feels more real. Like you can like touch them almost, and you can really see like the details of the like animals or whatever. But in VR, you're kind of like in that space. You're in the water with them. Like it feels like you're swimming with the fish. So it kind of feels a little more like immersive.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Okay, so you feel definitely kind of closer to it. So there are pros and cons. And Holly, what about you? Do you remember the first time you tried virtual reality?
I think I tried the same thing as Abby in the aquarium.
Yeah. Okay. Looking back on that, I mean, were there things that you think could have been done better from a design perspective and experience, or was it like 100% really fantastic?
It was really good. Like seeing it for the first time, it was really cool, and I wouldn't really change anything about it because I've seen I've went to an aquarium before, and it looked like kind of the same.
Yes. Yeah, great. Okay. So Daniel, what we're touching on now is this real importance of actually, you said before you've got an 11-year-old, so it's really kind of good to put the technology in the hands of the young people and actually see how they shape it, give the feedback. I mean, what could you say regarding that and the work that you're involved in? Because you said you're a tinkerer, and that's what it's all about, isn't it? Experimentation.
Yeah, so my daughter is one of the most important aspects of when I'm designing an experience, because what really what really sells me on good design and a good experience is on how she really can like kind of add to that. Like when I'm thinking about creating a game or creating some sort of learning tool, having my daughter be engaged in that design process is super valuable when we're trying to design for people like her. It's hard to design for small humans when you're a big human. That being said, I've tried all kinds of experiences, and some of the most impactful experiences to me are some of the simplest. And they're talking about the first times that Abby and Holly tried VR. One of the first times I tried VR was with my DK1. And the thing about the DK1 is that it made me believe in the technology, and it made me think, oh, you know, there's some cool stuff that can be done with this. But when I put on that DK2 and I could simply just lean forward in an experience, so just being able to like kind of move forward like that made me quit my job. Like it was like simple enough of an interaction that added such a level of freedom to be able to create experiences that I literally quit my job. And there's some pretty fun pictures of me right now with a DK2 tape stuck to my head and a Leap Motion taped to it because I never got the actual connector. But including the kids and including people that are going to be using the experience is really important, not just from like a VR design perspective, but just from like really building anything at all, whether you're a startup entrepreneur or whether you're building a course or anything, is understanding who's going to be using what you're developing. So it's so important to be able to like ask your customers like what do you like, what do you not like. Putting kids into just games in general and just into VR to understand the interaction, the human component to these experiences is so beneficial because it really lets us see what works and what doesn't work. Altspace is a fairly simple interaction when we really think about it. We have emojis, we have rooms that we can collaborate in, and I have two hands, but some people have one because they're only using a Go. But really there isn't that much that we can do. But if we're looking at recent games that are coming out and all the stuff like the math teacher using Half-Life Alyx to use the whiteboard markers on the dirty window, and I got stuck at the dirty window part myself for like almost 45 minutes just doodling on it. Like those simple interactions add so much to an experience that it really shows the power of the technology and that sense of presence and immersion that we can get through these tools. The part that really drives me when I'm building those experiences is the human element. Being able to give you that sense of empathy and that sense of presence in an experience so that you can relate to that content is really what makes us retain that knowledge and really helps us understand better as humans. But not everyone learns the same way. And so when we include kids in those experiences, when we have people who are actually in the target audience that we want to create for actually contribute back to that design process, it makes a huge difference to what is being produced at the end.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, and you touched again on a great point there. It's the human element. And Holly and Abby, this is exactly why you're here, okay? We might be in kind of cartoonish avatars right now, but you're here not just as guinea pigs or because we want to say, oh, you know, we've got an 11-year-old and a 15-year-old and let's hear what they say. You're here because you play a fundamental role, okay? A really important role in helping us, boring adults, make sure that we create the technology that you need. And you need to make sure as well that you tell your teachers what you need, okay? So I don't think we should ever forget that. You need to, you know, whenever you've got the devices, if they show you a VR experience at school, make sure you feed back to the teachers exactly, you know, what you think about that, because they can provide you the content that you need to help you pass that exam or improve that particular skill. Holly, what about VR as well as school? Do they have any virtual reality headsets available?
No, they don't have any VR in my school. Last year, for like a project, and we were learning about like the nervous system and all that. I brought a VR in my class to like show everybody, and everyone got to try in the VR.
Yeah. And what was the reaction? I bet they loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Excellent. Abby, did you do the same? Have you ventured into school with a VR headset?
I didn't bring a headset, but I remember doing AI one time for science also, having AR. But yeah, no, I don't think I've ever used VR in school, which is not a good thing. definitely helpful.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
remember,
Wonderful.
yeah.
Sorry, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, got a slight delay there. Excellent. So we're talking about today the art of study, and we're going to move now on to that more specifically. I mean, how can we use these tools? We understand that it's all about creating the product which is fit for the user's needs. There's some great projects out there as well, which connects kind of universities with product designers and schools and teachers, in particular University College London. So if anybody doesn't know that, UCL's Educate program, you should definitely check that out. But we spoke about the human element, which you brought up, Daniel, which is so key to all of this. But when we talk specifically about education and study, I mean, where does that, what could you talk about that, Daniel? Because you're on a board of a number of kind of organizations, aren't you, where you support students in using this and teachers?
Yeah, so the most important aspect to creating experiences with this technology is that human element and is that ability to give a sense of presence. A couple of years ago, I did a TEDx talk called Reforging Reality. And in that talk, I really drive on the ability to take students into situations which they can't safely go to, they can't normally go to, or it's impossible to go to. And we think about the art of study, and we think about creating those experiences or learning about those places that you can't normally go to. I like to think back to my own education. There were plenty of times where, when I was in elementary school, a new word for you, and we spent a lot of time coloring in maps of Canada and learning about North American geography and watching old videos or looking at pictures. But now being able to put on a headset and go in Google Earth and just kind of send kids anywhere in the world, and they can see what it looks like to stand on a street in Colombia, or to go and visit a store in China, or go to somewhere in Africa or into Ghana or something, and just be able to see how people live. That is so powerful. And so when we think about the art of study and when we think about the uses of technology, we don't actually have to change at a fundamental level the way we learn, from the sense of how we structure out learning objects and how we are kind of pulling together the content that we want people to learn, or how we want people to absorb knowledge. What we need to do is we need to understand that we can utilize and leverage technology to do that in a more impactful way. So in my TEDx talk, I talk a lot about being able to go to places like a pig farm. So a pig farm in Canada is interesting because in other parts of the world, it's just open field. So I was driving through the UK a couple of years ago, and I saw that there was just pigs in a field. And I thought that was super weird because in Canada, it's a super sterile environment. Viruses, as we know right now, can be spread through animals. And the virus we're dealing with right now, I believe, comes from bats, which is common. A lot of coronaviruses come from bats. But a lot of viruses like swine flu and stuff come from pigs. And so when you think about that, it's not super safe to expose people to pigs. But also human viruses and human illnesses can affect them as well. So putting people into a virtual experience where you can visit a pig barn is very impactful, because the kids need to learn where their food is coming from. They want to learn about these animals. And we can't do that without putting someone in a medium like VR. So the idea of utilizing the technology to just change the way that we're presenting content to learners and to be able to immerse people in an experience really adds to those experiences. Now, one thing that's also really important that I've been talking a lot about with people is we're spending a lot of time right now simulating things, talking about how I can swing a hammer better, or I can perform an experiment, or I can stand on Mars. That's fine. But one thing that we can use technology for and utilize virtual reality for that we can't do in other mediums easily is that soft skills element. The art of talking to people, the art of presenting, the art of being able to express yourself. I'm super proud of Abby and Holly right now because I have, like I said, an 11-year-old daughter, and she has played a lot of VR, but she's never done a presentation. And I mean, she's a good presenter when I go to her school, and she likes to do a thing called Tusk, where they bring me in and I'm her presenter. But that's still to a small group of people that she sees every day. So one of the most challenging things that you'll ever do as a human is go out and give a presentation and talk about what you do and what drives you as a human. And VR is allowing you guys to do that right now, despite the fact that we're in a pandemic. What we're doing right now is literally the best thing that we can be doing for education. It is literally the best way that we can leverage this technology and leverage this medium in general to really tell a story and bring us all together as humans better. We're always going to retain that knowledge better when we feel like we're engaged, when we feel like we're part of this. We're all here together right now, and we're all learning from each other, and we're all learning from Abby and Holly. But what's really powerful here is that we have that sense of connection, and we have that human component that really pulls us all together. So that is really what kind of encapsulates my belief in VR and what helps us build these experiences for humans.
Fantastic, yeah. And talking about that connection, before we come to Abby and Holly again, the hand raise button is on. So if you didn't realise, look down, bottom right, near your right foot, you'll see host tool. You won't see that, but you'll see the hand raise button. If you have any questions at any point of this, feel free to click that. And we've got somebody here who's actually waiting to fire a question away at us. So let's come to you. Joseph, you're on the megaphone. And he's disappeared. There we go. He's got a bit of stage fright there. No problem. Abby, Holly, tell the people here as well in terms of actually specifically like what we did before, like in your experiences, because we were in Engage, which is another VR platform. We also came here, didn't we, not so long ago? Abby, maybe we can start with you telling us what did we do in there? What's your experience?
The first time when we went in, it was just me and you, Michael, and then we were talking about how we can teach English in this environment, and we were in Engage in that one, and I think we were like near a beach or something, and we were pointing out how we can say different verbs and different adjectives and how to say them in the past and present like tenses.
Yes. Yeah, that's right. So we did some language kind of training, and you don't have you've never taught English before, but you learned a bit of the mechanics of how we have this language that you speak very, very well. And that was maybe a different dynamic, and you got a sense of what it's like to teach something. And you'll hopefully be joining us in future programs as well, where we can connect you with kids or students around the world in order to, just share your knowledge, culture, and also a little bit of your expertise in terms of being a native English speaker or whatever else you want to share. So look forward to that. And Holly, what was your experience with me? What did we do together? Do you remember?
I remember the first time we were in this apartment, and we went into the kitchen, and you asked me where it was in the kitchen, and I said these things, and you said, how would you write these in a different language? And I said, maybe put a sticky note on these things, and when you click it, it pops up in a different language and your language.
Yeah. And the feedback you gave and your sister as well in terms of what we could do to improve this technology. I don't know if you ever both wrote an email to Immersive VR Education who created the Engage platform, but you need to do that because both of you had some great feedback for me about how we could use it for languages. So I'd love to know as well. Here's the next question for you, Holly. Is like, what about other subjects? We're talking a lot about communication, languages, etc. But what other subjects at school do you think could be helped with this technology, for example?
Well, the thing that you said with language, and I said learning French, maybe math would be a good thing. To learn different equations. Social studies, maybe watching videos from the past, or watching videos from the past. Like my teacher likes watching videos from the past about learning about that stuff. So we watch videos like that. You can watch those in VR and be in that experience.
Yeah, great points. Abby, what do you reckon? Other subjects, how can we use these immersive experiences to support the way that you learn other subjects apart from languages?
Well, I was actually just in Labs Day the other day, and I thought that was cool that I could do a science experiment in VR, and I thought that was really cool because you can do it in person, but if you don't have the materials or you're stuck in your home, right, so you can just use that and be in a really, really expensive area where you need all these tools and stuff to do this experiment, but you're doing it in your own home. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And do you think that you are, for you again, Abby, do you think that you are developing other skills? Yeah, okay, it's interesting, it's useful, it's safe because you're in a virtual laboratory, but what about the softer skills, other skills you could be developing at the same time? Difficult question.
Yeah, so you're developing kind of how to read through the instructions and like go to different places and learning all the we were doing these things with these computers and different things to do testing. So you're learning about the machines and how to do that testing also on top of the way it works.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, sure. So reading instructions, understanding how processes work, it's all good. Daniel, I mean, what about the work that you're doing as well? You said it's on your LinkedIn profile. I think I'm not making this up. You described yourself as a madman, a tinkerer.
Yeah, I actually recently changed that. It used to say I was an author and a business leader and all those things, but I changed it actually during the last conference because I realized that I'm more of a mad scientist and I like to tinker. I spend a lot of time outside of just like my work elements, just playing with things, like spending a lot of time with accessibility controls, how to make VR experiences more accessible to people that may be experiencing disabilities. And I've been really enjoying a tool called the 3D Rudder, which actually, I don't know if Rel remembers this, but I was accidentally flying during the Educators in VR conference during Tom Furness's talk because the 3D Rudder for some reason let me go up in the air during the talk. Still don't know why. Sorry again for that. But it is a very interesting locomotion method. So yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of time tinkering with ideas, and I really liked the question of what kind of other skills are you learning when you're in VR, and what other kind of subjects can you learn? I mean, there's the obvious, the geography, there's the language skills and those kind of things. But with some of the most impactful experiences that I've been a part of creating are about workforce development and exposing people to potential future careers. So some of the work that we did in northern Manitoba, actually one of my favorite projects we called Try the Trades North. And in that experience, we took 50 Pico Goblin headsets into northern communities to expose kids to different skill trades and put them in a tower crane and put them next to a welder and introduce them to a girl that is a flag person or a rock truck operator. And they got to meet a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life, not just all of the standard construction person you might expect. If you see the picture of me up there, maybe you're envisioning me with a hard hat on, a big guy with a beard and a hard hat. But we introduced them to the women and the people from different walks of life and the people who've immigrated to Canada that are working in that industry, and helps them understand that people like them work in different careers. So it helps them understand what they can do with their futures. Not everyone's going to be a scientist. Not everyone's going to be a PhD doctor. I mean, we need those people, but some people are going to be tradespeople, and there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, we're living in a world right now where those essential services, like the truck drivers and the people who repair the roads and stuff, are very essential, more so than ever, because all of us thinkers, like myself, I'm stuck in my house, hiding from a virus. And so, being able to expose those people to how they can have high impact careers and really grow themselves is an interesting way to use the technology, and a very impactful way.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yes, and a lot of that comes out of tinkering and playing.
It does, yeah. And this is the thing. I mean, okay, Holly and Abby, if money were not an option, imagine I gave you a check or cash, I don't know, $1 million Canadian dollars, $2 million. I mean, what would you do with it to maybe help people who maybe can't learn in the way we could learn? Because everyone in this room, I think, is probably maybe the top 1% in the world, global population, in terms of lucky, access to technology. Most of them do not have that. We are very, very fortunate, aren't we? So if we were not an option, Abby, the question for you, this wasn't in the email, I'm sorry, I'm surprised you with a few questions yesterday. That was a great answer already. If we were not an option, what could we do with the technology or something else that we are, for example, to support communities that might need a bit more? Any ideas? But it was a tough one.
Reaching out, and I kind of did not hear a word you just said.
All right, so Michael, you need to re-enter. You need to re-enter again, my friend.
I'll be back in a second.
Yeah. All right.
No.
Okay.
No, it was just
Right, breaking up. All right. So, did you want to say something about it while we're waiting for him to come back?
I don't even know what he said, to be honest.
No. I meant just continue with the thought. He was just riffing on your thoughts. So, what else would you like to say about, so we have the art of study. I'm not sure how long this is like a half-hour session here, and for you guys. And so he was just kind of closing it up because I believe he was going to talk about the art of study. So I'm not quite sure. He should be back in just a second. There you are. Are you back?
I'm back.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right.
So basically, yeah, Abby and Holly, the question for you is that imagine if money were not an object and I gave you $1 million or Canadian dollars in cash. What would you do with it to help people maybe in different communities with technology, for example? How could we help these communities? Because Daniel's doing some great work. Any ideas?
I'll go first. Well, I think everyone should be provided with the VR headset because I think it's very important for learning itself to understand, like being in the environment. If you're learning about, say, what Daniel said about the pig farm, if you're learning about pigs and stuff like that, it's good to be in that environment. Or the science, it's good to be involved in that. So I think it's really important to have a VR headset, just like maybe one in each home or something like that. I think it's really good for whatever, for everyone.
Sure. Excellent answer. Holly, any ideas? Imagine I gave you lots of money. How could you help people in the world? What would you do?
I agree with Abby on giving everyone a headset to learn because some people don't have any. And I feel like headsets help you learn better. Like it's a better experience to learn. Yeah, absolutely. Like what you said at the beginning of the conversation about the aquarium, for example. Not everybody can go to an aquarium, can they? And maybe, have you been to an aquarium? Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I was in Toronto. We didn't
All
get
right.
that one.
Yeah, really nice. But, you're lucky. We've got one in London and some in Italy where I am. But unfortunately, not everyone can. So, as you said, the headset can get them closer to the nature, for example, a little bit closer. Okay, good. Well, Daniel, let's move on to the topic now of kind of this business methodologies, entrepreneurial mindset and thinking. What could you say about that and how VR could support that type of thinking as well, outside of the traditional kind of thing of, school, college, university, etc.? Because you touched on that a moment ago.
Yeah, so on the entrepreneurial side, I mean, some of this kind of echoes what we've been talking about with education, because what really supports the entrepreneurial mindset really is the idea of being connected. It is really the idea of allowing us all to learn from more people. A lot of times, and this kind of goes back to my community involvement. I'm involved in an organization called Northforge, and Northforge is essentially our startup technology exchange. And so through that, we have our makerspace and we have our co-working spaces and stuff along those lines. And really that's where my company got started. And one of the things that I see people run into when they're thinking about products and they're thinking about starting their ideas is they think about a problem that is immediately where they are. They think about solving some sort of problem that's really for them. What VR allows us to do is it allows us to connect with people around the world and get a bigger sense of the scope on what we're trying to solve. From the entrepreneur side of things, we exist because we're solving a problem. If you're not solving a problem and you're not making any money, you're basically starting a club. And which is kind of funny because I know a lot of people who are entrepreneurs, but they've never actually sold something. And one of the hardest things to do is to continue to sell. And in order to continue to sell, you have to continue to solve problems. And eventually you're going to solve all the problems for the people immediately around you. And one of my favorite analogies for that is where do you keep your ketchup, or where do you keep your vinegar? So in some countries, you keep your ketchup in the cupboard, and in some countries, you keep your ketchup in the fridge. Where do you keep your ketchup in London?
Oh, listen, look, I'm in Italy right now, and ketchup is like a dirty word because Italians, they don't like ketchup. They have proper tomato sauce.
So in London, they'll often keep it in the cupboard. In Canada, we keep it in the fridge. In the U.S., like they go through more ketchup than any other country on the planet. So if the problem you were solving was a tomato sauce, you certainly would not be trying to sell it in Italy, but you wouldn't know that if you weren't connecting with people from Italy. And so when you think of like the world at a grand scale, this is the technology that connects us. This is what gives us that sense of connection. I've met more people from around the world in VR than I have at any real life conference. And believe me, I've been to a lot of conferences over the last 5 years. I've made more meaningful relationships and met more people that I've learned more from in the past like 4 months in VR than in the past 5 years of my business. And business has taken me all over the world. So it really is a tool that allows us to think of problems at a much bigger scale. Once you start traveling for work, once you start like really thinking about the world at a big scale, you start to realize that there are problems that exist beyond your own community. There's nothing wrong with being an entrepreneur and thinking about solving a problem. And that being said, entrepreneurial doesn't always mean you're starting a business. Having an entrepreneurial mindset and thinking about problems and how you're solving them is just that. It's a mindset. You can be an entrepreneur and innovate within an organization. It really is just like how you approach problems that you're trying to solve.
Yeah, definitely. And you are standing next to your right, Daniel, very entrepreneurial minded people, because Holly touched on earlier the kind of the suggestions that we came up with. And she mentioned to me completely kind of spontaneously with regards to how we could change this technology and modify it to her needs. So automatically, Holly, you're already like way ahead. Like you're thinking about, okay, well, I'm using this technology. I can see what's around me, but we could do things better. So that was really fantastic to see, as you mentioned earlier. And your sister as well, Abby, you'd actually started a business, I think, or you did in the past. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah, so I have my own company. I started it when I was 9 years old. It's a sandal company, and they're designed to leave heart-shaped canlines on the top of your feet.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so
and,
I had that company for 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And what did you learn from that? Some of the key lessons you could take out of that experience?
Oh, that it's very hard to work with feet. That's a very complicated market.
Yes.
I met a lot of people. I've talked on a lot of stages, so communication was a very important thing for me. Yeah, those pretty much my most valuable.
Are you still selling those sandals, Holly? Can we get a discount for everyone in the room, 10% off?
Unfortunately, we're not selling them anymore. We made 2,000 and we sold them all, so yeah, we won't be distributing anymore.
Congratulations. Let's get some claps for that. That is amazing. I mean, like Daniel said, there are entrepreneurs out there who have not sold a sausage, and you've sold 2,000 of them. So congratulations. Well done. Holly, what do you finish school? Any ideas?
I'm not sure yet.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought about it.
Yeah. I think you've got a great future ahead of you with kind of product design, VR. It's going to be great. Whatever, the most important thing is you just keep thinking, keep doing what Daniel does, keep experimenting. Because if you keep experimenting, you're going to stumble across your passions and et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So Daniel, what about that? I mean, how would you recommend, are you seeing that in where you are out in Canada, this kind of people don't necessarily see the entrepreneurial road as a viable option after school? Is that something that you're seeing, or it's part of the culture there?
I think that it's definitely like something that's becoming more common, people understanding the entrepreneurial side of thinking. We have, especially here in Winnipeg, we have a really good ecosystem with the high schools and with our space that we call Innovation Alley that really helps schools approach the topic of entrepreneurial mindset. And touching on, Holly, you being 11, you have so much time ahead of you before you finish school that the world will be a different place. So I like to think back, I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And really I make video games for a living. So whether or not I grew up or not, I don't actually know. I just tinker. So the most important thing that both of you can do right now is keep tinkering, keep playing. Because there was plenty of times when I was your guys' ages and my parents said, we got to get Daniel off that computer. Well, the whole time that I was on that computer, I was learning to code. I was thinking about how video games worked. I was playing with the ideas that would one day really give me the foundational skills for what I need now. I learned how to build computers. I spend a lot of time building computers. I build all the computers for my employees, and like I have 15 to build ahead of me in the near future for a large-scale deployment. So those kind of skills are going to take you really far. So it's not just like communities thinking about being entrepreneurial. It's understanding that like the non-obvious opportunities that come out of the technologies that we're using now. So even if you don't have access to a VR headset, it's being exposed to fundamental learning like coding logic and learning, and just even thinking about video games. A lot of kids are playing Roblox right now, and Roblox is a really cool tool for creating video game worlds. Do either of you guys play Roblox right now?
No, but I was playing Minecraft the other day. That's kind of like Roblox.
Perfect. So same idea. Putting kids into those games that are very creative, it actually opens up a lot of potential because now they're being exposed to problem solving. They're being exposed to critical thinking. They're being exposed to creative tools. What really comes out of entrepreneurial mindset is the ability to think critically and solve problems. And again, problems aren't just simply because of a business need. You're going to face challenges in all kinds of aspects of life. Being able to be creative in the way that you solve problems is really what is going to be what makes or breaks you.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, and this is the thing as well, is kind of taking that a step further, is Holly and Abby, the experiences that you first had in VR, which is that kind of aquarium situation, that's not to say that necessarily you're going to end up creating those types of experiences in VR for the future or working in technology. It could actually just be the spark required to have a career in conservation or working, if we're talking about the pig farm, for example, working on a farm. I mean, we don't know where it's going to take us, but ultimately VR gives us the possibility to have these many different kind of experiences in a safe, engaging environment that we couldn't normally do in the real world. It wouldn't be practical or possible, but actually might sort of get that spark within you. So that's, I think, it's something to consider as well. We might have a question coming through. Joel, question. The mic is yours. Joe, if you've got a question, and if anybody else has a question. No, Joe, we can't hear you. You might want to check your audio. We've got about 5-7 minutes left. There's so much more we could say, but we do want to open up the floor. If you've got any questions for Holly, for Abby, for Daniel, happy to answer those. Good. Okay. Now, Daniel, I mean, what's the next stage of this? I mean, you're working on these projects. What are your kind of personal and professional goals with regards to trying to get as many people to, and particularly those kind of communities that are under-resourced as well? Where do you see that going?
So right now, my big focus is on connecting the highest impact partners that I can with these types of communities, trying to pull together the right partners to create experiences, to expose kids to all kinds of different experiences. So whether that's workforce development, whether that's just purely educational experiences, and trying to bring technology to these communities. Right now, not only are they not given access to as much resources and as much technology, they're also isolated because they can't even come to the bigger cities right now. So during a pandemic, what is it like to live in a community of 1,000, or less? Because there's no people coming through the town. There's no ability to come to Winnipeg or to Toronto. So those schools are shut down just like everywhere else, but they might not have that technology at home. So right now what I'm trying to do is support the school divisions and find the right partners who can bring technology to the table and really help start that discussion. So it's a challenge for sure, because like funding is that fundamental piece that's always missing, is finding who's going to actually pay for that technology, because the communities don't have the money. We can only make so much software available for free, and everybody in this room can only do so much. So right now it's trying to be creative with how we solve these problems. I was a little bit disappointed recently with Google's approach to VR, which is, and by what I mean by that is canceling their Daydream platform and open sourcing the Google Cardboard platform, because those were the low cost, high impact platforms that we really liked for these kinds of experiences. Now, I understand you can't necessarily do like an alt space VR in Google Cardboard, but Google Cardboard does allow us to put them in the solar system. It does allow us to show them a 360 video, to expose them to different environments. And with those projects kind of being shelved or kind of pushed to the side, it really raises the bar for what we need to raise in regards to funding for those types of experiences. So we aren't able to like just simply send out a bunch of cardboard boxes anymore. I mean, I realize that it still works, but for how long is it a reliable platform?
Yeah.
So right now, it's trying to find those high-impact platforms and low-cost technologies that allow us to do large-scale deployments that are actually affordable to communities that aren't in large metropolitan areas. I mean, schools in large areas have problems with funding just like anywhere else, but imagine being in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Just so that everyone understands, geographically, the city I'm from, which is Winnipeg, we are just north of the U.S. border. So I can drive to the United States for a shopping trip and go home. And we're just above North Dakota. And if you drive for 4 hours, I can be in Grand Forks. But if I drive 8 hours to the north of my city, there's nothing. There's small towns here and there, mostly reservations, mostly small communities, and they don't have the infrastructure. They don't even have reliable internet. And we're in Canada. This isn't like a third world country. This is like we're literally like just a few hours from the U.S. border, and we don't have access to that infrastructure. So it's trying to help push my province and push the partners in my ecosystem to solve these problems. And they are big problems. We're trying to democratize that content and trying to pull together as many people as possible, which is actually how I met their dad.
Yeah, you mentioned that, yeah. So, okay, so you met their father as well. Good. So it's becoming a family affair, and certainly a family that's very open to experimenting. And this is, I guess, the final question, in particular for Holly and Abby and everybody out there, and also Daniel. And this might be an unpopular question to ask, but I need to ask it: is what do you think that VR does not do well at the moment, or will never be able to do well? Because I really think it's important to bear that in mind, because that could feed into the kind of the design process, how we could use and enjoy VR for learning or pleasure, but also it makes us realize, focus our minds. Okay, it's not good in these certain contexts. I mean, Daniel, what do you think is, we're not really going to be able to do very well in VR?
Well, right now, the biggest challenge in VR is fragmentation in the hardware. I've used a different headset every day of the week this week to connect with my team, just to, between using the Quest, using the Vive Pro, which I'm using right now, to using the Rift S, to whatever. The fragmentation in the hardware is the challenge. So VR doesn't necessarily have a consistent interaction, which is a challenge. Right now, what VR as a medium doesn't do super well, which actually is kind of ironic because it is a piece that I talk about a lot, is that human component. Although we can still see each other, and it's better than just like doing a tweet interaction, you don't get those fine body language elements. So like I'm obviously talking with my hands a lot, but you can't see like what I'm doing with my face, and you can't see like, you miss a lot of those subtle cues which you don't have yet. Now, I don't think that it'll never do that. It's one of the things that we're missing. And AltSpace is a really good example of compromises that we're making to accommodate for that device fragmentation. Some people in here will be on Oculus Go's, and some people are on Oculuses, and some people are on Vives, and some people are on Quests, and whatever. We're all on different hardware. But because of that, we are all needing to have a consistent experience. So we're in a very low poly world, which is positive for the problem we're trying to overcome. But it has a negative impact on my ability to have that human interaction. When you jump into some other tools, you have a more realistic avatar, a more realistic sense of presence. But you miss out on the ability to target those lower end devices. So now, in order to invest in the technology to get to that point, we have to pay more money, which is like fine, again, for like the individual or for companies, but challenging to do it at a large scale rollout. I like the question of what would they do with $1 million. $1 million only gets us a few headsets when you think of it in the grand scheme of things. We need hundreds of millions of dollars to get a headset to everyone in rural communities, and just like astronomical funds to get everybody a headset. So,
Yeah.
from the cost element and the deployment element, like it is a challenge to overcome, and it is really probably the biggest thing that VR doesn't do great right now is to sort of compromise for the most impact on the most amount of headsets at the expense of the human interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. You've hit the nail on the head. So final questions for Holly and Abby. And Holly, this one's for you. So, I mean, there are many good things with VR, but what do you think can not replace? You know, for example, maybe homework that you think is better not done in VR, or maybe we spoke about discipline and behavior, for example. I mean, there are certain things that you could say there.
I don't think you can do really homework in VR. With you and me, it was a one-on-one conversation when we were talking.
Yes.
So I think homework is a main thing that you can't really do in VR for too long. I think some things you can't do in VR and some things you can, or you can do both. I think that's one of the main things.
Sure, yeah, great. And you mentioned the historical videos as another thing that you particularly thought that could work very well. And what about you, Abby? I mean, if you're a teacher, for example, and you've got a headset, do you think it's wise to give the headsets for, the full hour, or do you think you should kind of break it up? What would be your advice to the teachers out there?
Well, if you think it's one headset for the whole classroom or one for each person, putting it in for like an hour is kind of a long time. I know you're doing it for 24 hours, but some people get headaches and stuff like that. So I don't know. I think that you can't be in it for a long time, so that's kind of an issue. Also, the headset, the hardware is kind of heavy and the software is kind of glitchy, so it's not too great on that level. But hopefully, through the years, it'll get better and more futuristic.
Sure. Excellent. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. Okay. We've touched on hardware. We've done technology. We've done entrepreneurial mindset. We've done it. We've done under-resourced communities. We've also scratched the surface about what might not work well in VR. Thanks to Holly's point there about the homework as well. Congratulations, Abby, on the 2000 sandals. If you ever decide to make another pair, I'll have a pair of those, maybe two, because I definitely want to tan my feet when I'm on the Italian beaches when this pandemic blows over. But right, that's it. Daniel, Abby, Holly, there they are. You can see which one Daniel is. He's the chap on the right with the beard on the photo. We've got in the middle there is Holly, only 11 years old, but got some great insights, and Abby on the far left there. So thanks very much for coming along and sharing your time. We're going to let you get on and enjoy your weekend or your Friday night. Thanks very much. And thanks everybody. I'm gonna get another chocolate biscuit. You're sick of me saying that right now, aren't you? And a glass of orange juice number 17 for me today. And we're going to kick off the next meeting with visiting a bee farm with Alan Chow, and he's somewhere in the room, and we're going to look at bumblebees flying around us and how you make honey. There you go. If you didn't think you could get it any better. So if I don't see you again, have a good weekend. Thanks for coming. Laurel, I'm going to get a glass of water.
Okay. Oh, there you go.